some rumors. I mean, I haven't been looking at them very much, but because it's still middle of the season, a lot of the things going on. But apparently, some rumors. I believe you can lead with this. Because he's still technically, I think he has a player option right after this year. He could leave this offseason, I believe. That was
Yeah.
part of his extension or his deal when he signed with the Clippers a couple of years ago. So yeah, what are the rumors that you've seen and that you can share and react to?
So both him and Paul George had the player option to leave after this season, and it sort of put the Clippers in a bind because obviously if both leave, I mean,
They have
you
no
go
draft
from
picks because they traded him all for
yeah,
Paul
you go
George.
from an elite level team that should be competing for titles to back to what they were, but worse because you've lost the Montrezl Harrell, you've lost the Lou Williams, the guys who were like putting them in that eighth seed spot and fighting for with the Warriors that one series. So um, and like you said, they have no draft picks, so it would just put them in a really tight spot. Which is why when the Paul George thing happened and he signed the extension, a lot of people were kind of confused, like, oh, well, Paul George had a really bad playoff series. Why would you do that? All that kind of stuff. And I mean, there's really no other option because this is what they have. They don't really have trade assets, which is why they were really only able to go get a guy like Rondo. Because I was even just thinking, okay, like why didn't they go after a Kyle Lowry? Well, realistically, what would they give?
Yeah,
I mean,
nothing.
they just don't have a lot. So
That's the Raptors want.
um, exactly. So yeah, I mean, the goal for them really has to be keep Kawhi Leonard and hope that they can clear up some space, sign another free agent, something along those lines, because they just don't have any assets to make moves. Um, Now, the rumors are, at least right now, is that Kawhi will actually stay. I think that's probably backed up in the fact that he wanted to go to LA for so long, and it seemed like that pursuit of being in his hometown was more important than winning championships. Obviously, he still wanted to compete, but like I think everyone agrees, that Raptors team that he was on, if he was still on it, that's still a title contender, even with the things that we've seen. Because I think a lot of the sort of downfall of the Raptors so far has been because guys are having to step out of what made them really good in that one season. Like Pascal Siakam, he now has to try and be the guy because Kawhi's gone. So I think that yeah, it's pretty clear that he wanted to be in LA for a long time, regardless of how competitive they necessarily were, as long as they were competitive. So it seems like most people are believing he's going to stay in LA, but there are rumors because obviously Giannis has already re-signed. All these different guys have started to re-sign with their teams. So Kawhi is the last big free agent available. And if the Clippers do another horrible postseason run, like say they lose in the first round, which is entirely possible. The West is very competitive this year. If they lose in the first round, I mean, it has to be a possibility that Kawhi could potentially leave. And some of the options, which some of these I really hope don't happen. One of the rumors, first off, is that he would just go to the Lakers. They would clear up the space. They'd get rid of everybody. They'd bring him in. I think it'd be a super weak move. And the reason that everybody at least respects Kawhi is because he didn't do that the first time. He didn't go to LeBron and Anthony Davis. And so if he did that, that'd be really disappointing because I mean we've seen how most people feel about Kevin Durant at this point. Kawhi would just kind of join them or join him in that sort of you sold out just to be on the best team sort of thing. But the rumors are there because then he gets both the super competitive team that should win titles, and also there's the option of when LeBron, he's at the sort of end of his career. When LeBron's gone, it's now Kawhi and Anthony Davis's team, and he gets to stay in LA. So it sort of check a lot of boxes if that's what he wants to do. I don't think it happens because once again, it doesn't seem like he'd make a huge shift like that to go from not going to the Lakers and Anthony Davis and all that stuff the first time to now doing it because the Clippers sucked a few times. Now, the really interesting rumor to me is the Miami Heat. If anybody remembers when Kawhi was a free agent, I can't remember exactly how this happened, but I believe it was Jimmy Butler tried to recruit Kawhi to go with him to Miami because they were
Hmm.
both free agents in that year. It might have been the other way around where Kawhi was recruiting Jimmy Butler. I don't know,
They were in
but I'm
talks,
pretty
regardless.
sure.
Someone was trying to get
Yeah,
someone. I
yeah.
gotcha.
Uh, I feel like it was Jimmy Butler trying to recruit Kawhi because if it was the other way around, why wouldn't Kawhi just go to Miami?
He
once
wanted to
again,
go to
maybe it's
LA.
just because he wanted to be in LA. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it was Jimmy Butler trying to get him. The interesting part there is all the weaknesses that we see with the Clippers, the lack of assets, the the lack of leadership, all these kind of things. The Heat, that's all their strengths. They have Tyler Hero, they have Duncan Robinson, they have assets that they could move. And we've seen Pat Riley. He will make deals happen. And then they have leadership. Jimmy Butler, one of the best leaders in the entire league, and he's also a really good player. So I think that him, Bam, Kawhi, that'd be a crazy trio,
Especially
and they would
defensively.
be so good defensively. Now it would be it'd be tough for the Heat to pull it off because they would really have to get rid of like everybody. They'd have to reduce the bird rights to like Duncan Robinson and everybody. I think the only players they could realistically keep would be Tyler Hero, Precious Achua, Bam, and Jimmy. I think that's really only the players they could actually keep on the team, and then they'd have to get rid of pretty much everybody else and then sign guys to a bunch of minimums. Because as we already know, Jimmy and Bam are making like max salary stuff. So Kawhi would too. That's all their money. Um, Now it's not the strongest rumor, and literally at this point, every big time free agent or trade piece or whatever, they're all linked to Miami, along with Boston and the Lakers. Like those are just teams that everybody's getting linked to these days. Um, but I do think it'd be very interesting because, like I said, all of the things that have made the Clippers struggle and what could potentially, you know, have the Clippers lose in this playoff run, if, like I said, if they have another one where they choke, Miami checks all the boxes of those things are not going to make Miami struggle because they have defense. They have Jimmy Butler. They have guys who step up when it matters. They're in the East, which is a lot easier of a conference. I know that Durant and Harden, all those guys are over there now. But I think Kawhi, Jimmy Butler, and Bam, they can compete with those three. So, yeah, it's interesting. I haven't really heard about a ton of other teams in the mix. The only other one that I've really heard that'd be super notable would be the Warriors because they could get rid of Wiggins. They could get rid of Oubre. They bring in Kawhi. I don't know how the money situation would work with like Clay and Draymond and all them, but obviously you keep Steph, you keep James Wiseman, you got Kawhi. I assume Clay and Draymond would stay on sort of cheaper deals or something like that. Um, but yeah, it'd be wild if any of those three teams really get Kawhi. But like I said, the rumors, at least currently, are Kawhi's gonna stay in LA. That's what most people believe. But really, to me, it hinges on their playoff run because if they do worse than last year, I wouldn't be surprised if he left.
Yeah. So as of right now, considering if like, because I know it's a 10 team, technically 10 teams make the playoffs, but like 7 plays 10, 8 plays. There's like a play-in for the bottom 4 seeds. But regardless, right now Clippers 3 seed, Portland then 6 seed. However, it is important to note that the Nuggets are on like a 8 or 9 game win streak. And they're only a game behind of the Clippers. But just personally, as someone who went through the number 2 experience, I just feel like I could see that, but I just don't see him leaving the Clippers just because he's already dug this hole that he wanted to be there for so long, and he brought in Paul George. I wouldn't say he basically got Doc Rivers fired, but he necessarily didn't speak against it. So
Right.
uh, he might not care. I don't know. It just once again we don't hear the guy talk. We still don't even know what really happened in San Antonio, and that's coming as a San Antonio fan. We don't really know what happened. That's also a byproduct of the Spurs kind of being like him, where once it was over with, it was over with. We're not talking about it. So it's I think he will end up staying. I think what he's really maybe trying to do is just, which may be smart, is just seeing if the cap's going to increase, get a bigger extension, opt out of his player or get a new extension for more money, which, hey, it's smart for him and his family. So, but I just, like you mentioned, the Clippers have given up so much, and if he does leave, he would be. He would rival Durant as a villain, in terms of what Durant did, because although number two's already got rings, which Durant didn't have, that's why people criticize him. Yeah, it's like, okay, well, what do you want? You left San Antonio because maybe you had disagreements with the medical team, and you said that you wanted to be the guy, even though you already were the guy. You know, you won a championship with Toronto, but apparently that wasn't good enough for you. You wanted to go to LA. Okay, well now you're in LA. Now you're the main guy. Now you're getting max money. Now you're getting all the respect in terms of as a player. I think everyone would say he's, top, at least top three. In that conversation, however you want to rank him. Like, what more do you want besides winning a ring, which once again you've already done and you can do with this LA team that they've given you and for the Clippers. So, yeah, if he does somehow join the Lakers, that would be bad. Or even the Warriors, especially. But once again, we have to see what they give up. The Heat would be an interesting one, especially with out east with like you mentioned against the Nets. But I'm trying to see. I don't think he would go to Philly. But yeah,
I don't think he'd want to reunite with Doc Rivers after
yeah, that's
the way
true.
that all ended.
But
I mean, I know he doesn't talk a bunch, but I have to imagine he was involved in the decision at some point.
it'd be interesting if they like traded Tobias or traded Ben and like some assets because Philly does still have some assets, but it should
Yeah.
be interesting player wise. But other than that, I mean, I really don't see any other place where he would want to go. I mean, once again, we don't know the guy, so I would imagine this is just him waiting to see, maybe waiting for more TV deals or it's and just wait until the off season or maybe like you mentioned, maybe wait to see if how they do in the playoffs and see if he needs to leave town. So that'd be something to keep an eye on,
I
especially
will
if.
add
Go
to
ahead.
what were you saying?
I was just saying something to keep an eye on, especially if the Clippers fall early, because like you mentioned, a lot of good teams in the West, especially now with the Phoenix being a real contender. There's still Portland, Memphis hanging around. My Spurs are hanging around. Golden State can get hot. So
Yeah, I was just gonna add too that if he does stay, well now and they don't have a good playoff run, they have a lot of free agents that could leave, so they would have some cap space to work with. And although I mean, like I said, he's the last remaining like big time free agent, and they don't have assets to talk about, like to go get one of the guys that we're going to talk about right after this. But there are still some interesting players who will be free agents that they could get. Kyle Lowry's going to be a free agent. Maybe he wants to reunite with Kawhi and do it in LA. Lonzo Ball is going to be a free agent. We know that they were potentially interested in him before the trade deadline. Victor Oladipo, if the Miami Heat doesn't work out with Oladipo, he'll be a free agent. So I mean, there are options out there to where they could make a big improvement to what they currently have if Kawhi does stay. And obviously, if Kawhi and Paul George are there and the money's freed up, I think a lot of players would want to go play in LA with those guys. And I'm not sure when their stadium's supposed to be done. If it is next year, that's even more of a reason to go play there because now you don't have to share with the Lakers and Staples Center. You have your own super nice stadium that is it's just your guys. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I don't think he'd leave just because it would seem like a total character shift of he wanted to do his own thing. He wanted to be his own guy, get his own team, all that kind of stuff. That's why and he wanted to do it his way. He wanted to do it in LA, all that kind of stuff. It would just feel crazy if he did leave. But once again, we've seen crazier things happen. I don't think anybody really thought that Kevin Durant would go to Golden State before that season, and especially after the way that they choked it, and then he did. So